right, hi everyone, calling to order the Board of Commissioners in our scheduled weekly work session. It's September 1st, 2021. The time now is 10:03. We have all three commissioners here, Commissioner Boyd, DeGroot, and Morris. First, we need to review meeting minutes from last week.
I'm good.
Good with those? All right, thank you. And so we'll move. Good.
Let me check real quick, I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed because it's still a public meeting. So our first item, okay, thank you. Our first item on the agenda is Klamath and Malheur Watershed District Manager and ODF. I'm guessing that's you guys. Come on up. And just since you may not have been with us before, the first time you speak, identify yourself for the record. Yeah, the masks are okay when you're speaking because it's a little hard to hear sometimes on the recording.
Whatever you're comfortable.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you all are up to.
Okay. Well, so my name's Philip Milburn. I'm the Klamath and Malheur Watershed District Manager. It's a mouthful, but with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I'll let Tom introduce himself real quick.
Yeah, Tom Collum, I'm the District Wildlife Biologist with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife right here in Klamath.
So part of the reason for us coming today is I just want to introduce myself. So my position, I oversee our fish and wildlife field operations in all of Southeast Oregon, from Malheur, Harney, Lake, and Klamath counties. I was in Lake County yesterday doing the exact same thing with the commissioners over there. Not that I anticipate being actively involved in local issues. That's really Tom and Ben Ramirez, the fish biologist's job. My job is to support them. Even in the age of COVID, I find it's useful to come and introduce myself to folks, because in my job, I'm kind of the interaction or the interface between local issues and elevating them to headquarters or policy level type decisions. And so if issues in supporting of Tom or the county, come to me, I just like to have introduced myself to folks. I had to come over for gather some equipment and files related to this new position, because Trevor Watson, who had it before, was based out of here. I'm going to stay based out of Ontario for now. And so I was coming over and I timed it to be able to come to the work session today just to introduce myself and answer potentially any questions, get myself in trouble. So I brought Tom.
And Philip's not a stranger to Klamath County. He actually was the Assistant District Wildlife Biologist back in the early to mid 2000s. So he's pretty familiar with a lot of the wildlife issues, and he's coming up to speed on a bunch of the fisheries related stuff.
I currently spend most of my time on the fishery stuff because it is all new to me, and just trying to understand my role there takes a little bit more of my time.
So Philip, I appreciate you coming. It's always nice for me to have a face with a name. To be honest with you, I'll forget the name, but I won't forget the face. It's kind of how I am.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. One thing that needs to be said, and I'm sure you already know this, Tom is a fantastic man. I mean, when I've needed him, I've reached out. He's always got back to me. He always has great information. He's a friend of Klamath County's, and I think he's a friend of wildlife in Klamath County. I know he's a friend of wildlife in Klamath County. He supports farmers as much as he possibly can, and you got a great man. I mean, I don't know if I'm sure you knew that, but I just wanted to say that because he's a good guy, really is.
Thanks for that, Don. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Tom for quite a few years closely, and then in an association. Yep. We've actually spent a little time in deer and elk camp together too, so I know him a little bit.
I'm not sure it's fair that you guys should be hunting elk. I mean, you might know where they're at.
Well, I have some documentation I can dissuade you with that thought.
We've
of
had
tags
quite a
with
few
no-
unfilled
yeah.
tags.
All right, anything for you?
No, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all your work. Commissioner said it very well. Appreciate your support of ag really in Klamath and of course wildlife, the community in general. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Like I said, I didn't have agenda really to
Like
speak
that.
of, but I just wanted to stop in. You know, Klamath is an area of a lot of stuff going on here that has nexus with our programs.
Like
and
what?
so-
No, I'm just kidding.
There's- I read something in the newspaper. I can't remember now.
Well, we really appreciate
Yeah.
it because there's, as you can imagine, most of the time people come before us, they want something and they want it yesterday. So it's
Right.
nice to just have a true introduction, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities for us to need to reach out to you.
Yeah, and I don't have business cards made up or anything. I mean, I do have some, my old ones that I've kind of modified, but I thought I would just follow up with an email and you guys would have contact
Especially
information for me, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so
All right.
much, and don't be a stranger.
Okay, appreciate the time, and I think we'll step out. Tom has to go deal with an urban deer issue and
That's important.
head back to Ontario.
There's no deer in the urban growth.
Travel safe.
Thank you.
Those deer sometimes
Thank you,
jump out
guys.
at you.
Yes,
I've
they
tried
do.
talking to you before.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Have a good rest of the day, guys.
Yep. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, you too.
Casita and the enterprise zone discussion, come on up. And you all know the drill, and we have Larry on the phone too, so I don't know who wants to kick us off.
Sounds good. Well,
Hey Larry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you great, thanks.
Perfect.
So Julie, are you gonna
I will.
Okay.
Something for you. Well, as a zone manager, learning what I have to do in that role, one of them is if we have to change, well, first of all, I have two items. First one is a zone application from Gilchrist Forest Products. And on the front page, it just kind of tells you if they're qualified, what the qualifications are, and they do actually meet the qualifications. And Larry and I talked to them, and we thought they would be a good company to go for the 4 and 5 year exemption, and that's what they requested. So when that happens, it does have to have the sponsor's approval. So that's why we're here to see if you would approve it. And if you do approve it, also there's an option for you to actually have like a community service fee or make some kind of arrangement. So if indeed you do want to go ahead with the 4 or 5 year extension, we would need to know what you might consider for that. Larry, anything on your end to add?
No, that at least gets the discussion started.
Yeah, because I do,
Let me
Do
pause
have
you for a
the
second.
wages.
Does the board have any initial feedback before Julie, or questions? Sure.
Well, I don't know, so initial feedback, I'm glad that we're having a conversation. I do want to talk about, maybe just step back from this actual project for a minute and just kind of have more of a holistic conversation about enterprise zone management. I'd like to clean up the process a little bit, and by that what I mean is, I think right now the process is we have a conversation so that we can have a conversation, so that we can learn who we can talk to have a conversation about what the process should be. I really think that the association as our manager needs to have somebody within the county that they can talk to help prepare documents, get information, all of that type of stuff, so that they can come talk to us for approvals, right? Because that process is actually even clunky. And so if they had someone that they could go to and say, hey, can you work with us? This is the information we need so that I can get it in front of the commissioners for consideration and or approval, or to move into some type of a negotiation process like this one may require. That part of the process needs to be cleaned up. And I do think that Casita needs a direct contact person, staff member within the county that they can work on with to get that information. And we need to give them and that staff permission to do that work. And kind of line out that process. Right now, it's time consuming, it's cumbersome, and it's clunky, and it's bad government, in my opinion. But
And I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I do know that there's been several people involved in this conversation. And I have heard of emails that have gone back and forth that says this is what you need to do, and they've been ignored by people. I'm not saying if it was Casita or if it was county staff, I'm just, saying that they've had issues. I think this is a conversation that we need to have with a group of people, not the three of us, and say, what was the stumbling block that stopped you from doing what you were supposed to do, and what happened, so we know what we do. Everything I'm talking about, Commissioner, is pure Ruben.
yeah, I think so just because I've kind of been in the middle of all of it, I think what the biggest problem is, there's no direction from us for what the process should be and who and those contact people should be. And that's what's needed, is direction from us to say, here's your point of contact. They're gonna help you prepare documents. They're gonna help you get the information that you need. They're gonna help you do all the stuff. You're gonna do the stuff that's on your side. The fact of the matter is we haven't done a lot of this. And so everybody's learning through that process, both from the Casita side and from the county side. What we need is just authorization from us for them to be able to work with staff and figure out what that process should look like. I don't think we have to micromanage the process. We just need to give them access to staff, and we need to give staff authorization to work.
You and I are on the exact same page. The problem is, I don't understand the process well enough to say, this is who I think we should have that in my mind. If it should be county council, if it should be, Rick Vaughn, if it should be Carlos, the janitor. I mean, I just don't understand how it all works.
Perhaps they should get together and then make a recommendation to us and then get that approval. I don't know if we necessarily need to hold their hand as they have those conversations.
And I'm not saying that at all. I need to understand the process better. I mean, and that's not really, it's just, like you said, we haven't done a lot of this, so we don't truly understand the process. But
without them getting together and figuring it out themselves, they can't educate us on what the process should be. So it's just like, we need to say, hey, can Casita, hey, we're gonna have, instruct Rick and Mark to sit down with Casita, and maybe even Nathan Bigby, come up with some recommendations for a contact person and a process to work these things out, bring that to us, and then let us give that stamp of approval.
So
to
it
it.
and I'm
sounds
great.
Yeah, it sounds
Okay.
like there's
That would be
consensus
wonderful.
around
just-
that being a next step
It's gonna move
for
the
future.
process. And so, thank you, I wanted to get that off my chest.
So
just because
that's
it's-
one piece, and then you want
That's
us to
still-
directly manage this piece.
Yeah, and the second piece is, I have
So
two.
I'd just
I
like to
guess.
comment on the last
Sure.
thing that Commissioner Boyd brought up. You really need a ladder diagram that says these are the steps. And so when we come into you, we're actually presenting something to you that you can actually make a decision on. But it's already been vetted by your staff. And they're recommending the same thing. And we did that with the SIP, as you recall, Donna, you and I worked on that and said, this is where we're at, these are the next steps you need to take. And we will do that. We will set that up, and then we'll work with whoever you seem like, if it takes legal, then we would bring in your counsel. If it takes property manager, we'd bring in Rick. If it was just a tax department, we'd follow that line diagram according to what each of these are slightly different.
But I'd like to actually narrow that down even more, is give you one contact person, and then that person would bring in the appropriate, do the, whatever needs to be done internally in order to give you back what you need.
That's great news. All right, great. So we have received an application from Guild Forest Products. They're going to do, on their application, they have $16 million plus of investment that they would like to do. They're already in the zone, so it's just a matter of, their enterprise zone, by right, is a 3-year. You can go to 4 and 5 years if the sponsors approve it. So that's kind of why we're here, to see if you would want to consider that, approve that, If so, you have an option as a sponsor to ask for a community service fee as well. That would be, reasonable based on their, their numbers. Number one shows you what their investment is, what their tax rate is, and what their taxes a year would be on that application. They do meet the wages. A lot of the applicants don't meet 150% average wage, so they have good paying jobs, and that's with their benefits wrapped in it. So they plan to add 11 new employees. It's really important for that part of our county, which I think is great. They're a great addition. And I just go through the actions needed. Just consider it, approve or not approve.
Most of their employees are from Deschutes County though, I believe. Is that not correct?
They probably are.
And that's because
don't
there's a
have the
housing
data.
issue up there as well, that's the only place.
Well, not.
Pushing them down.
A lot of it.
So,
My thoughts, just having some conversations up there, not just with these folks, but just also the community and things that are trying to get kickstarted up there. This is just my initial thoughts for, maybe some broad guidelines for Casita to work on is I'm totally amenable to working on an extended time frame, probably even the 5-year range. I think a community service fee is probably appropriate. I don't know what that dollar amount is. I'd like to hear some recommendations. And I'd also like that community service fee in some way to stay up in North County. Whether that means working with the fire protection district up there, working with the community in some projects that they need, whether it's water, sewer, infrastructure, the other districts that could be, and if it has to come through us, that's fine. But I'd like to see the dollars stay in North County. There's a lot of investments that need to be made up there. And I think that's what benefits our that region the best.
And I understand that your desire. I think I gotta give you some pushback. There are services that are provided from here,
Sure there are.
like law enforcement,
Sure there is.
So I think we need to keep that in mind, that we have to provide law enforcement for these people. They don't wanna have an agency up there without any law enforcement. And so, and I agree with the thought that they have to be able to fight fire, so we have to help Chief Webb somehow.
Right.
So, we gotta try to figure out who the taxing districts are up there and what this would do to their tax base by eliminating their taxes.
Mhm.
Or, because that's basically what we're doing. Who is Chief Webb getting $50,000 a year from what was Interfor per year? I'm just throwing out a stupid number. And, what happens now?
Right.
And I think there's some agencies up there that we gotta keep hold.
And I want to make sure that I don't want to speak wrong, so I'm looking to the two of you and the
Tax
and
base
Larry.
is the same, this is the tax above.
Right,
on
so
the improvements.
the
So
taxes that are
existing
collected
tax
now
base
do
stays
not
the same.
change. It's only on the new dollars being invested, we're talking about the taxes on that new investment. So nothing gets taken away from anybody.
Correct.
It's just that. And I appreciate what you're saying, and so Chief Webb will get even more money than he's getting now, depending on what the community service fee and how it's distributed. And to your point that you made in the very beginning, there's huge issues up there, the same as there is down here in just like water and sewer infrastructure to make it affordable to put in housing. And not to mention just the water issues that they're having up there now. They've actually made some headway in sewer infrastructure in Crescent, but not really Gilcrest. So I would just like to be able to help lift that community up a little bit so that maybe some of those housing start coming to Klamath County instead of everybody driving across the border to live and then work over here.
So I think it looks like there's a couple decisions maybe that, these are decision points. One is, are we willing to do the 5 years? The second is, do we want to do a community service fee? And at this point, if people want to talk about the amount or want to spend some time reflecting on that, but I think we should try to narrow down those two questions.
So I would say, for me, yes, up to the 5 year. Yes, I think there should be a community service fee. I would like our zone manager to have a discussion prior to us just throwing around numbers with the new mill owners, just about thoughts and ideas, and just kind of be able to bring us back a proposal of sorts instead of us just throwing out a number out.
And that's basically what Casita did with the SIP. I
Exactly.
mean, they went around and they said, this is, what we need to do. I mean, we need to keep our fire department whole, we need to keep the district whole, we need to, and in this case, it's not so much whole, it's increasing is a better term.
Yeah.
That's not even the term, augmenting is the term I'm looking for. And, I don't think you necessarily need to go to Chief Webb and get his permission and talk, but ultimately, they're gonna be affected. But I think, just like Commissioner DeGroot said, the first place we start out is with them and say, somewhere, and I'm talking annually, 182,000 is what it is, but, so let's start figuring out from there, if it's 90,000, if it's what it is. And you gotta give them a little pushback, because if I was on the other side of the desk, I'd say 0.
That's where it'll start, yeah.
Okay.
I don't
So-
think with them it'll start that way. They're just great neighbors to have in our community. You'll get a chance to meet them, but they're the right people to come to Clark County.
So just to formalize it, I'll make a motion that we extend the enterprise zone application for 5 years with Gilchrist Forest Products.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion just on that piece? All in favor signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye, motion passes. And then it sounds like there's consensus around if you could have some conversations around what might be a reasonable community service fee. I also think a community service fee is appropriate, so that will be to be continued. And then additionally, we will round up some staff to have a meeting with you all, Mark, Rick, Nathan, and kind of get that process piece. And you indicated you would sort of draw out the ladder process, I
Yeah.
like that term, and work with our staff, and then that can come back to us as a more moving forward, not specific to this project, what's a good process that everyone can agree on. Okay, so Julie, what else?
We will have to, once we get that together and come to agreement, we do have a form that we can do that makes it official.
For the community service fee?
Yeah, for the extended abatement actually, so. I'm not sure who that will go to and how we can handle that.
Right. That's exactly what we're talking about on the
On the
other
process.
process piece.
So that will be forthcoming.
Okay.
And that has to be done before they can install any of their equipment they want to have an abatement. So that's why it's we wanna keep this moving. Yes. Just also to let you know, your department, the assessors, they reviewed the application, they're good with it too. So, the live stream.
Because there's just, okay, thanks.
Is there a second item?
So the second item, we kind of talked about, there's, once we get the process, we're going to hope to get moving on the boundary changes. We have one in the North County, because we have a large company coming in that wants to do an investment, and also in the regular Klamath County zone, we want to do a change to include. So that's something we would like to get moving on as well for that process. Have your permission to move forward on whatever it might take.
Same thing, yeah, getting with,
Yeah,
yeah,
back with
I mean,
that.
that's exactly what I'm talking, there's so much it's starting to happen, it's actually starting to happen in
know, it
Klamath,
is.
and I'm getting excited, but we really need to focus on our
We need to get-
processes.
Yes,
Yeah.
the bureaucracy is like.
So do we wanna have a, maybe a targeted date that it comes back to us to just sign off on the process piece? So maybe like 2 weeks from now, should give you time to meet with our staff and you all to come up with something and then come back before this board, we can bless it.
Yeah, 2 weeks,
We'll start on our end.
if we
then
could do
call
it
a
I
meeting.
think
sooner,
we
it'd be
need to-
awesome.
We need to be working on the process and this application in conjunction.
Cause
Yeah.
they wanna be behind their,
Simultaneously,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because Julie just had angst in her face when we said 2 weeks. I'm guessing that Gilchrist wants to start investing.
ordering.
And in the private business world, 2 weeks is forever. And so I think we need to continue on with this project, even though we may not have the process, if that makes sense.
Well, you could come back next week to the work session.
Okay, if we get it together and, okay, if we can move that.
I'll
back.
ask Mark if he can kind of lead that work group internally.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. Cause you're right, they already missed out on one piece of equipment because they've already installed it, so, you know. Anyway, but they have plenty of others they wanna get going on
And
in
then
order.
20 projects.
They have a lot. Anything
Okay.
else? Thank you for your time.
All right, does the board have anything for the good of the order before adjourn?
I do not.
All right, we'll be adjourned at
Thanks, Larry.
10:27.
Thank you.
Yeah, get
Thanks,
well,
Larry.
Larry. Get well.